What if Star Citizen's next system was almost ready? What if Nyx wasn't just a name on a star map, but a real place we'll finally set foot in, powered by next-gen tools that could reshape the entire way we explore? The system's been teased for years, quietly waiting in the shadows, while Pyro and server meshing took the spotlight. But now, thanks to a few key updates like PlanetTech v5, Starchitect, and new backend tools, there's real evidence that Nyx is finally coming into focus. And what's more exciting, it could be the start of something a bit bigger than we're used to. This video isn't just more speculation, it's a closer look at the tools shaping the next generation of planetary systems in Star Citizen, and how they could finally bring more depth and variety to the locations that we visit. Now, Delamar and Levski were removed back in early 2021 with patch 3.12.1, and ever since we've been waiting to see when and how they'd return. We've had teases, white boxes, and previews, but little in the way of real updates. But that changed at CitizenCon 2024 when we finally saw a much more developed version of Levski, featuring open landing pads like Port Olisar had, new freight elevator systems for larger ships like the Hull C, and an entirely reworked entrance point that suggests that this isn't just a visual facelift. It's a functional overhaul. Now, with PlanetTech v5 and Starchitect starting to show meaningful progress during monthly reports and progress updates, we might be on the edge of seeing systems that go beyond visual improvements and actually support a wider range of gameplay, such as better mission diversity, more exploration points, new landing zones, and systems that serve trade, traversal, and even future settlements in a way that we haven't seen before. Today we're diving into where PlanetTech v5 really stands, what Starchitect is doing behind the scenes, and why Nyx could mark the beginnings of Star Citizen's next major step forward. Now, here's the real issue. Star Citizen's planetary development pipeline has been painfully slow. And it's not because the team isn't working hard, it's because until recently, every planet, every outpost, and every point of interest had to be individually crafted, often by hand. That kind of artistry looks incredible, no doubt, but when your goal is to build an expansive universe with dozens of systems, hundreds of planets, and countless landing zones, that method just doesn't scale. That's part of why Nyx, for all the excitement that it's generated, has remained out of reach for so long. We saw a demo and we saw the potential, but nothing came of it. Behind the scenes, CIG knew the hard truth, that they couldn't build systems like Nyx using old workflows and still hit the kind of cadence this project needs. Not without cutting corners, not without compromising on functionality. And to be fair, a lot of that focus has shifted towards Squadron 42. CIG has been hyper-focused on polishing and optimizing the single-player experience so they can finally deliver it, hopefully by 2026. Now, that laser focus has meant a lot less attention on building out entirely new star systems in the PU. And it's also meant that a lot of issues still remain and new features aren't being added. It's a trade-off that makes sense in the short term, but it does leave gaps in the sandbox that players have been waiting years to see filled. And the problem wasn't just speed, it was sustainability. Because building a pretty landscape is one thing, but populating that space with missions, with logical traversal paths, with cargo networks, faction presence, and future player settlements, that's an entirely different level of complexity. The tools at the time just were not built for it. So instead of forcing it, CIG paused. But now that bottleneck might finally be breaking open. With the emergence of Genesis, CIG is shifting from handcrafted limitations to scalable world-building systems with oversight and purpose. Genesis is the backbone of this effort, a suite of processes within Star Engine that generates plausible planetary biomes. Not just with terrain, flora, and fauna, but with placement data for settlements and outposts. It uses a growing set of data maps like temperature, humidity, geology, soil type, and soil depth to drive realistic terrain texturing and object placement, forming the ecological and geographical logic behind each world. Layered on top of that, Planetech V5 refines the visual fidelity and diversity of those worlds, allowing CIG to add more detailed biomes, terrain variety, and improved environmental storytelling. It's what makes the planets feel distinct from one another, not just visually stunning, but geographically and ecologically unique. And then there's Starchitect, the system designed to populate those worlds with thousands of points of interest in ways that make logical sense. Rather than manually placing outposts one at a time, Starchitect allows CIG to generate modular, terrain-aware settlements that fit the needs of missions, traversal, trade, and exploration. And that's the real shift, because if these tools actually deliver what they're designed to, it means Nyx won't just come back. It'll come back as a more intelligent, fully realized system. One built on a foundation that finally supports the kind of rapid, layered expansion this universe has needed for a long time. Now, if you want to stay ahead of what's real, what's marketing, and what might actually shape the game's future, consider subscribing. I break down Star Citizen's development with clarity, context, and none of the fluff. And if you found this useful, there's a lot more coming. In a recent update, Ali Brown confirmed that planets and moons will be updated to Planetech V5 as they are completed and not retrofitted later. That's a major shift. It means new systems like Nyx aren't waiting around to be patched in post-launch. They're being constructed from the ground up with the latest tech already integrated. So what is Planetech V5 actually solving? First off, it tackles one of the most critical issues with earlier versions: scale fidelity. Terrain in V5 is more physically accurate, which means fewer awkward elevation bugs, more realistic contours, and more believable landscapes overall. On top of that, object scattering and biome transitions have been reworked to flow more organically. Forests grow where they should, cliffs form naturally, and rivers actually behave like part of the terrain. They're also adding new biomes like redwood forests, jungles, swamps, and likely a lot more. But it's not just about visuals. The improvements to topological realism directly impact gameplay. Now, with better terrain comes better mission design. Roads can wind through mountain passes instead of floating awkwardly on a flat plain. Settlements can logically sit in valleys or cling to cliff sides, and hostile zones can be placed in areas that naturally feel more dangerous or remote. It creates opportunities for more emergent gameplay and meaningful traversal. That's where Starchitect kicks in. As mentioned back in CitizenCon 2024, Starchitect isn't just another placement tool. It's the backbone for dynamically populating planets with purpose. It allows the team to define terrain rules, biome constraints, elevation parameters, and even narrative context. If they want an abandoned research facility buried in the snowdrifts at high altitude, Starchitect can place that within seconds, then modify the surrounding terrain and visuals to support the story. So when we talk about Nyx being viable soon, it's not just about optimism. Those tools unlock the kind of system design that Star Citizen has always hinted at, but rarely delivered. We're no longer bound to static hubs or pre-designed corridors. Places like Levski, Shubin deep core mines, and outlaw trading posts and asteroid belts aren't just lore. They're meaningful locations in a massive universe. And they can now be built to fit seamlessly into the world, with scale, logic, and gameplay all working in tandem. It was never about if Nyx can happen. It was always a question of when. And this is where it all comes together. With Starchitect, Planetech V5, and the Genesis system refining procedural mission and biome placement behind the scenes, Nyx doesn't just represent another star system on the roadmap. It becomes something more. And in many ways, it's a litmus test. a signal that CIG can finally build the universe at scale with systems that aren't just visually distinct, but designed with gameplay, traversal, and storytelling in mind from day one. A lot quicker than they have in the past. But let's be real, none of this matters if the tools don't actually deliver. We still haven't seen Nyx aside from CitizenCon last year. There's been no dedicated reintroduction on Inside Star Citizen or Star Citizen Live. And with patch 4.3 set to arrive this month, bringing updates like dynamic snowfall, Onyx facilities, new stealth suits, and the next narrative-driven missions, it's clear that Nyx isn't part of the current short-term focus, which means all eyes are on CitizenCon. Will that be the moment we finally get a full gameplay reintroduction? Because if Nyx does reappear, and it's running on Planetech V5, built using Genesis with terrain-aware POI placement, freight hubs, traversal routes, and mission hooks, this could be the biggest leap that we've seen since Pyro's initial rollout. Not just visually, but structurally. And that structure includes weather. Genesis isn't just about biomes and terrain, it's also evolving the way planets behave. Dynamic rain and lightning storms will finally interact with the surface and sky more believably. Snowfall will vary by altitude and humidity, and we'll start seeing truly alien weather, like sandstorms tearing across the surface of places like Daymar, acid rain searing the hulls of our ships on volatile mining worlds, or even supercooled methane fog blanketing low-lying basins, so dense it muffles sound and visibility, turning a routine recon into a nerve-wracking search through opaque, whiteout conditions. These aren't just visual flair, they're atmospheric challenges, potentially even mission modifiers that could make every visit to a planet feel different depending on the conditions. If CIG nails this, Nyx could set the template for every system that follows. Not just in terrain fidelity or modular asset use, but in how weather, traversal, and gameplay loops all collide to create living, reactive environments. The question now isn't just when we'll see Nyx again. It's whether it'll be another turning point that Star Citizen really needs. So what does this all mean for Star Citizen? It means that Nyx isn't just a name on a star map anymore. It's the proving ground for everything CIG has quietly been working towards. Tools like Planetech V5, Genesis, and Starchitect don't just improve fidelity. They unlock a completely different pace and quality of system development. If these tools are real and they're working the way developers say they are, then we're standing on the edge of something long overdue. A Star Citizen universe that actually is ready to grow. Not in handcrafted slow motion, but in layered, gameplay-driven expansions that connect exploration, mission design, weather systems, and economy into something coherent. Maybe even larger planets and moons down the line. Of course, we've all heard the promises before, and while Pyro is finally here, it launched with sky-high expectations that didn't quite match what was delivered. Stanton 2 is still receiving polish, but it's in a much better place than it was a year ago. There's clear progress, but also plenty of work left to do. The real momentum may come when Squadron 42 ships. When that team turns its full attention to Star Citizen, we might finally see the pace of development shift from cautious iteration to bold expansion. Nyx might not be the final piece of the puzzle, but it could be the first one that shows us the whole picture. But what do you think? Will Nyx be the turning point for you? Or are we still a ways away from seeing CIG hit that sustainable stride? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Are you more excited about the alien weather systems, the terrain fidelity, or the potential for faster, more meaningful expansion across the verse? Now, if you're enjoying these grounded, in-depth videos and want to support the channel, consider subscribing, or take it a step further and become a channel member. Members get exclusive access to behind-the-scenes updates, private channels in my Discord, and even a direct voice in shaping what we cover next. And if you're looking for more, check out my recent video where I break down why freight elevators still aren't working the way they should. Or take a look at my coverage of Owlcat's upcoming RPG, The Expanse: Osiris Reborn, which might just be the surprise hit of the decade. As always, thanks for watching. Fly safe, pilots, and I'll see you in the verse. Havoc out.